The Galactic Empire's first mistake. The Galactic Empire ruled with an iron fist. For thousands of years, no one had dared challenge their dominance. Their fleets spanned galaxies, their armies crushed rebellions before they even began, and their technology was thought to be unmatched. When their scouts discovered a small blue planet called Earth, nestled in a quiet corner of the galaxy, they barely paid attention. To them, it was just another primitive world to conquer. High Admiral Corvath stood aboard the bridge of the Imperial Valor, an enormous flagship bristling with weapons. The planet below looked peaceful, unprepared. Humans, Corvath muttered, tasting the word as if it were a bland meal. Let's see if they have anything worth taking. The first step of the Empire's conquest was simple: demand surrender. A single transmission was sent, its message clear and cold. This is the Galactic Empire. Submit to our rule or face destruction. Corvath expected groveling, begging, the usual response from weaker species. Instead, there was silence. Minutes passed, then an hour. Still, no reply. Corvath's patience wore thin. Fools, he spat, gesturing to his communication officer. Send another message. If they don't respond, send the destroyers. Teach them a lesson. But before the officer could carry out the order, the humans finally replied. The voice that echoed through the bridge was calm and steady, almost mocking. This is Earth. Turn back now, or face the consequences. Laughter erupted from the crew. Even Corvath allowed a smirk to creep across his face. Bold words for primitives, he sneered. Send the destroyers. 3 destroyers descended into Earth's orbit. Their mission was straightforward: strike fear into the hearts of these insolent humans. The destroyers activated their weapons, aiming to level a small human city as a warning. But just as they were about to fire, alarms blared across their decks. Admiral Corvath, a panicked voice called over the comms. We're detecting energy spikes. Multiple human ships have entered orbit. Corvath leaned forward in his chair, his smirk vanishing. Impossible. How could they mobilize so quickly? On the view screen, the human ships appeared. They were smaller than Imperial vessels, sleeker, with strange designs Corvath had never seen. They didn't look like the patched-together crafts of a primitive species. They looked advanced. The destroyers opened fire first, unleashing a barrage of plasma rounds. The human ships moved with uncanny precision, dodging the attacks as if they had predicted them. Then they struck back. Bright beams of light erupted from the human ships, cutting through the shields of the Imperial destroyers like they were nothing. Explosions lit up the dark sky as one destroyer after another was destroyed. Corvath's crew watched in stunned silence. What kind of weapons are those? One officer stammered. Corvath didn't answer. His hands tightened into fists as he stared at the screen. 3 Imperial destroyers, wiped out in minutes by a species the Empire had dismissed as unimportant. Back on Earth, Commander Elena Martinez stood in the command center of the U.S. Defiance, one of the lead ships in Earth's fleet. Her sharp eyes scanned the holographic display, showing the remnants of the Imperial destroyers. They underestimated us, she said, her voice steady but cold. Big mistake. Earth had been preparing for this day for years. Ever since humanity made its first contact with alien species, it had known the galaxy wasn't friendly. The Galactic Empire was a name whispered with fear across dozens of worlds. Earth knew they couldn't compete in numbers, but they could outsmart their enemies. And so they did. Behind the scenes, human engineers and scientists had worked tirelessly, creating technology that rivaled anything the Empire had. The world united under the threat of invasion, turning its resources to the one thing that mattered: survival. Now, their efforts were paying off. Send them a message, Commander Martinez ordered. Make sure they understand we're not afraid of them. A transmission was sent to the Imperial Valor. Corvath's face twisted in anger as the human message played. You've been warned. Turn back now, or face annihilation. How dare they? Corvath roared, slamming his fist onto the console. "Prepare the fleet. We'll show these humans what it means to defy the Empire." "Admiral," one of his officers said hesitantly, "perhaps we should report this to the Emperor. These humans, they're not what we expected." Corvath glared at the officer. His pride stung. "Report failure? Never. I will crush them myself." As the Imperial Valor prepared to lead its reinforcements to Earth, the humans moved with calculated precision. Humans showed their teeth. High Admiral Corvath stood at the center of the Imperial Valor's command deck, his gaze fixed on the holographic display. The wreckage of his destroyed destroyers floated silently in Earth's orbit. For the first time in his career, he felt a pang of uncertainty. How could a species as primitive as humans dismantle Imperial ships so effortlessly? The comms officer's voice cracked through the tense air. "Admiral, the reinforcement fleet has arrived. 30 Imperial warships, fully armed and ready to engage." Corvath nodded stiffly, his pride bruised but his resolve unshaken. "Good. Encircle the planet. Leave no gaps in the blockade. This time, we will burn Earth to ash." But something didn't sit right. The humans hadn't gloated after their victory. They hadn't even sent another message. They were quiet. Too quiet. On board the U.S. Defiance, Commander Elena Martinez leaned over the central console, watching as the Empire's reinforcements entered Earth's orbit. Her team was tense but focused. The stakes had never been higher. "Status on the stealth fleet?" she asked, her tone sharp and commanding. "Fully operational and in position," a tactical officer replied. "They've cloaked themselves behind the moon. The Imperials haven't detected them." Elena allowed herself a small, grim smile. The stealth fleet was Earth's ace. These ships were designed for one purpose: to strike from the shadows, unseen and unstoppable. Humanity had long prepared for the day it would face an overwhelmingly superior force. Their answer wasn't size. It was strategy. "Good," she said. "Let the Imperials think they're in control." For now, the Imperial fleet began its assault. Warships unleashed volleys of plasma, targeting Earth's defense systems. Massive explosions rippled across the upper atmosphere, but Earth's shields held strong. Corvath watched, satisfaction creeping into his expression. "Their defenses are weakening. Increase firepower." Suddenly, a voice from tactical cut through the room. "Admiral, energy spikes detected. Multiple signatures. There." Before the officer could finish, beams of searing light lanced through the black void, striking Imperial cruisers with pinpoint accuracy. Ships that had been symbols of the Empire's might were reduced to debris in seconds. Corvath spun toward the display, his expression one of pure disbelief. "Where did that come from?" "They're behind us," the tactical officer shouted. The humans had ships cloaked behind the moon. Panic rippled through the Imperial fleet as Earth's stealth armada revealed itself. Smaller than the Empire's warships, but faster and armed with weapons that tore through shields like paper, the human ships darted through the battlefield like predators. Commander Martinez watched the chaos unfold with cold precision. "Target their flagships," she ordered. "Cut off their leadership, and the rest will scatter." The U.S. Defiance surged forward, leading the charge. Human ships danced through the Imperial fleet, firing with deadly accuracy. Their weapons weren't just powerful. They were precise. Each shot counted. One by one, Imperial ships fell. Some exploded in fiery blooms. Others drifted lifelessly, their systems fried by human EMP pulses. The Empire's numerical advantage meant nothing in the face of humanity's tactics. "Admiral Corvath's ship is in range," a tactical officer reported. Elena's eyes narrowed. "Disable it. I want him alive." Aboard the Imperial Valor, the bridge was in chaos. Officers shouted over one another, desperately trying to make sense of the battlefield. Corvath stood frozen, his mind racing. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Humans were supposed to crumble under Imperial might, not fight back with such terrifying efficiency. "Admiral, we need to retreat," one of his officers pleaded. "They're picking us apart." "Retreat," Korvath snarled, his pride flaring. "The Empire doesn't retreat." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. They were losing. Badly. Before he could issue his next command, the Imperial valor shuddered violently. Sparks flew from consoles, and alarms blared across the bridge. "They've disabled our engines," an officer cried. "We're dead in the water." Korvath gripped the edge of the console, his knuckles white. "Send a distress signal to the Emperor," he ordered. "Tell him, we've encountered an enemy unlike any we've faced before." Back on Earth, General Marcus Hayes watched the battle from the ground command center. The room erupted into cheers as the Imperial flagship went dark, but Marcus raised a hand, silencing them. "This isn't over," he said grimly. "The Empire won't take this defeat lightly. They'll send everything they have." "What's the next move, sir?" an officer asked. Marcus turned to the holographic map, his expression hard. "We hit them harder." As the human fleet mopped up the remaining Imperial ships, the Galactic Council received the distress signal from the Imperial valor. The Emperor himself sat in his grand throne room, listening to Korvath's panicked report. "They've destroyed our fleet, Your Majesty." Korvath's voice trembled. "Their technology, their strategy. It's unlike anything we've seen." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll send the full might of the Empire," he said coldly. "These humans will learn what happens when they defy us." But deep down, even the Emperor felt a flicker of unease. For the first time, the Galactic Empire had encountered a species that fought back, and won. The human trap. The Imperial valor drifted in silence, its engines dead and its pride shattered. Around it, the remnants of the Imperial fleet floated as debris. High Admiral Korvath stood at the bridge, his face pale as he stared at the carnage. This was no minor setback. This was a humiliation, a crushing defeat that would stain the Empire's reputation for centuries. "Admiral," a trembling officer began, "we've received confirmation from the Emperor. Reinforcements are en route. A full battle fleet." "Sir." Korvath clenched his fists. Reinforcements would mean more ships, more weapons, and more firepower. But they would also come with more questions, questions he wasn't prepared to answer. "Good," he said, forcing authority into his voice. "Prepare the remaining ships for their arrival. When the battle fleet arrives, we'll—" The officer hesitated. "Admiral, the reinforcements are bringing a dreadnought." Korvath froze. A dreadnought. The Empire's ultimate weapon, a behemoth so powerful it could annihilate entire planets in a single strike. It was a symbol of the Empire's invincibility, but deploying it against humans, that felt like overkill. Or desperation. "Let it come," Korvath growled. "We'll erase these pests from existence." On Earth, Commander Elena Martinez stood in the U.S. Defiance's war room, surrounded by holographic displays. The Imperial dreadnought was en route, along with a massive fleet of reinforcements. This was exactly what humanity had planned for. "They're bringing their big gun," she said, addressing her officers. "Good. That makes them predictable." "What's the play, Commander?" one of her lieutenants asked. Elena smiled grimly. "We lure them into the trap." The Imperial reinforcements arrived with an awe-inspiring display of force. Hundreds of warships surged into Earth's orbit, surrounding the planet like a metallic storm. At their center was the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, a hulking monstrosity armed with weapons capable of wiping Earth from existence. The human fleet, smaller and seemingly scattered, retreated toward the asteroid belt. To the Empire, it looked like cowardice. To the humans, it was strategy. Admiral Korvath, the captain of the dreadnought, said over the comms, "Your report suggested these humans were formidable. I see only a disorganized rabble fleeing before our might." Korvath gritted his teeth. "Do not underestimate them. They are not what they seem." The captain sneered. "They're running. That's all I need to know." From her position aboard the U.S. Defiance, Alina watched the Imperial fleet pursue. The dreadnought moved at the center, confident and slow, surrounded by its protective vanguard. It was a formation meant for intimidation, not survival. "They're taking the bait," she said, her voice cold. Phase 1 is a go. Human ships darted into the asteroid field, moving like ghosts through the treacherous terrain. The Empire followed, their ships slower and less agile. Plasma fire erupted in the darkness, but the humans had the advantage, using the asteroids for cover and striking with precision. "What are they doing?" Corvath muttered, his frustration mounting. "They're leading us into chaos." On board the Eternal Dominion, the captain dismissed the warnings. "They're cornered. Crush them." But as the Imperial fleet pushed deeper into the asteroid field, they found themselves in unfamiliar territory. The humans had fortified the asteroids, turning them into deadly traps. Hidden mines detonated, ripping through Imperial ships. Automated turrets, disguised as floating debris, fired relentlessly. "This is a slaughter," an Imperial officer shouted. "We're being torn apart." Corvath's eyes widened as he realized the extent of the human strategy. "Pull back," he ordered. "Get out of the field." But it was too late. The humans had closed off their retreat, positioning their stealth ships at the edges of the asteroid field. The Empire was trapped, their massive fleet unable to maneuver in the tight, hostile environment. From the bridge of the U.S. Defiance, Alina watched the chaos. The U.S. Titan, Earth's flagship dreadnought, emerged from the shadow of a massive asteroid. Unlike the Empire's Eternal Dominion, the Titan was built for agility as well as power. Its main cannon charged, a bright glow cutting through the darkness. "Fire," Alina commanded. A single beam of energy erupted from the Titan, slicing through the Imperial dreadnought's shields as if they didn't exist. The Eternal Dominion shook violently, its systems failing under the devastating impact. "Impossible," the Imperial captain shouted, his confidence shattered. "Our shields." Another beam struck, this time hitting the dreadnought's weapons array. Explosions rippled across its hull as secondary systems failed. The pride of the Empire was being dismantled piece by piece. Corvath's voice trembled as he addressed his bridge crew. "Send a message to the Emperor. Tell him we need more than reinforcements. These humans, they've planned for this." The bridge was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. The Galactic Empire, for the first time, was on the defensive. The battle ended as swiftly as it had begun. Human ships mopped up the remaining Imperial forces, driving the survivors out of Earth's orbit. The asteroid field was littered with Imperial wreckage, a graveyard of the Empire's arrogance. In the aftermath, Alina addressed her crew. "We've sent a message today," she said. "The Empire now knows we're not an easy target, but they'll be back. And when they come, we'll be ready." Far away, in the Emperor's throne room, Corvath's message played on a massive screen. The words hung in the air like a death knell. "They're not a species to conquer. They're a species to fear." The Emperor sat in silence, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned forward, his voice low and menacing. "Prepare the full might of the Empire. These humans, they will learn their place." The war was far from over. But for the first time in its long history, the Galactic Empire had encountered an enemy it didn't fully understand. And that terrified them. Earth's war machine. The U.S. Titan loomed like a leviathan amidst the wreckage of the Imperial fleet, its sleek design glinting against the backdrop of the asteroid field. On board, Commander Alina Martinez stood at the tactical console, her gaze fixed on the holographic display. Every movement of the Imperial remnants was tracked with chilling precision. "We've crippled their pride," she said calmly to her crew. "Now we show them the cost of underestimating Earth." High above, in the safety of the Imperial rear guard, Admiral Corvath received reports of the devastation. His bridge was a scene of chaos. Officers scrambled between stations, shouting updates and damage reports. The Imperial Valor, once the crown jewel of the Empire's fleet, was now a battered shell of its former self. "Admiral," an officer stammered, "the Eternal Dominion has gone silent. It's gone." Corvath's jaw tightened. The loss of the dreadnought was a blow the Empire had never suffered before. "How?" he barked. "How could this happen?" The officer hesitated, swallowing hard. "Their flagship, the U.S. Titan, it's unlike anything we've seen. It cut through our shields as if they weren't there." Corvath slammed his fist onto the console. "Get me the Emperor. He needs to know." Before he could finish, the ship shuddered violently. A warning alarm blared across the bridge. "Admiral, the humans are moving in on our position." Elena's voice rang out aboard the Titan. "Bring us within range of their flagship. Disable it, but keep Corvath alive. He's the key to understanding their strategy." The Titan surged forward, its engines humming with power. Human ships moved in perfect unison, cutting off the retreating Imperial vessels. The fleet's cohesion and precision were like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. "Fire at will," Elena commanded. The Titan's main cannon unleashed a concentrated burst of energy, disabling the Imperial Valor's engines. Smaller human ships swarmed around it, targeting weapons systems and communications arrays. Within minutes, the once mighty Imperial flagship was a floating prison. On board the Imperial Valor, Corvath gripped the edge of his chair, his face pale. "We're losing," he muttered, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "To humans." His officers looked to him for guidance, but the Admiral had none to give. The confidence he'd carried for decades, forged by the Empire's unbroken string of victories, was gone. A human transmission interrupted the despair. A calm, measured voice filled the bridge. "This is Commander Elena Martins of the U.S. Titan. Admiral Corvath, your fleet." Corvath's pride flared for a brief moment. "Surrender. To primitives." He opened his mouth to reply, but before he could speak, another voice cut in. "Admiral, don't be a fool." The captain of one of the remaining Imperial ships appeared on the comms. "We cannot win this. If you refuse, they'll destroy us all." Corvath stared at the captain, his pride warring with the undeniable truth. The human fleet had dismantled them piece by piece. They were outmatched. "Commander Martinez," he said finally, his voice heavy with defeat, "I accept your terms." Back on Earth, General Marcus Hayes watched the live feed from the Titan with a grim sense of satisfaction. "The Empire didn't just lose a battle today," he said to his team. "They lost their reputation." Cheers erupted in the command center, but Marcus held up a hand to silence them. "This isn't over. The Empire will respond, and next time, they won't hold back. We need to prepare for total war." The Emperor received Corvath's transmission in the grand halls of the Imperial Palace. He sat motionless as the Admiral explained the defeat, his voice trembling. When the message ended, the silence in the throne room was deafening. "Humans," the Emperor finally said, his voice cold and quiet. "They've taken from us what no species ever has, our invincibility." He turned to his advisors, his golden robes shimmering under the throne room's lights. "Mobilize every fleet. No planet will be spared. We will erase them from the stars." The human fleet, meanwhile, was not celebrating its victory. Elena and her officers convened in the Titan's war room, analyzing the battle. "They'll be back," Elena said, her tone matter-of-fact. "And next time, they'll bring everything they've got." "What's the plan, Commander?" one of her lieutenants asked. Elena looked at the holographic map of the galaxy, her expression hard. "We don't wait for them to strike. We take the fight to them." The room fell silent as her words sank in. Humanity had won a battle, but to survive the war, they would need to be bold. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and now it would learn just how dangerous humans could be. As the Titan led the fleet back toward Earth, the captured Imperial valor was towed behind it, a trophy and a warning. For the first time in galactic history, a human fleet had defeated the Empire. But as the stars shimmered around them, the humans knew this was only the beginning. The war machine had been awakened. Earth wasn't just defending itself anymore. It was preparing to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Fear spreads across the Empire. The Galactic Empire, once an unchallenged dominion, found itself in a storm of uncertainty. The news of humanity's victory traveled faster than the Empire could suppress it. Planets under Imperial control whispered tales of the mysterious human fleet that had decimated the mighty Eternal Dominion. What once seemed unthinkable was now undeniable. The Empire was no longer invincible. In the heart of the Imperial Palace, the Emperor held court with his closest advisors. The golden glow of the chamber felt oppressive, the weight of their failure casting long shadows. How did this happen? The Emperor demanded, his voice cutting through the tense silence. High Admiral Corvath's holographic image flickered before the council. His face bore the lines of defeat. Your Majesty, these humans, they're not like the others. They fight with precision, intelligence, and weapons we've never encountered. The Emperor's piercing gaze bore into Corvath. You're telling me primitives bested the greatest fleet in the galaxy? Corvath clenched his fists. They're not primitives. Their technology is on par with ours, perhaps even superior. And their tactics, they used our strength against us. One of the Emperor's advisors, a stern-faced woman named Magistrate Lauren, leaned forward. It's not just their weapons. The humans united their planet. No factions, no infighting. They pooled their resources and prepared for us. They were ready. The Emperor's expression darkened. Then we must show them the true might of the Empire. Prepare the Grand Armada. Lauren hesitated. With respect, Your Majesty, the galaxy is watching. If we escalate this war and fail again, it won't just be Earth that defies us. It will be every planet under our rule. The Emperor's silence was deafening. The implication was clear. Fear of rebellion was creeping into the cracks of their once unshakable authority. On Earth, the mood was no less tense. In a hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Marcus Hayes convened with the world's top leaders and military minds. Holographic displays lit the room, showing intercepted Imperial communications and fleet movements. They're regrouping, Marcus. Commander Elena Martinez, patched in from the U.S. Titan, spoke next. The Empire's strategy is predictable. They rely on overwhelming force and fear. If we can dismantle their morale, we can turn this war into chaos. A young strategist leaned forward. We need to hit them where it hurts. Show the galaxy they're not untouchable. Marcus nodded. Agreed. But we can't fight them head-on. We need to be smarter, faster, and deadlier. This is a war of survival. In a distant star system, far from Earth's defenses, a rebellion was brewing. For centuries, the Zorith Confederation had chafed under Imperial rule. They were a proud, warrior-like race, but even their might had been crushed by the Empire's relentless conquest. Now they watched the news of Earth's defiance with cautious hope. In the dimly lit hall of the Zorith High Council, their leader, General Theric, addressed his people. The humans have shown us what we dared not believe, he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The Empire can bleed. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Theric raised a clenched fist. We must seize this moment. The humans fight not just for themselves, but for all of us who yearn to be free. If we rise now, we may turn the tide. A council member hesitated. And if the humans fail? Theric's gaze hardened. Then we fail together. But if we do nothing, we've already lost. Back in the Imperial Palace, Magistrate Lauren stood in her private chambers, her mind racing. She was loyal to the Empire, but her loyalty had limits. The Emperor's pride was leading them into a war that could unravel everything they'd built. A secure communication device blinked on her desk. With a deep breath, she activated it. A holographic image of Commander Martinez appeared, her face calm but wary. "You're risking a lot contacting me," Elena said. Lauren's voice was steady. "The Empire isn't invincible, and you've proven that. But if you escalate this war, the galaxy will suffer. Billions will die." Elena's expression didn't change. "What's your point?" "My point," Lauren said, "is that the Empire can be destabilized without total war. If you're smart about your strikes, you can break their grip without dragging the entire galaxy into conflict." Elena studied her for a moment. "Why would you help us?" Lauren hesitated, then spoke the truth. "Because the Emperor will destroy us all if his pride is wounded further. If you win, you must win decisively." As the human fleet prepared for the next phase of the war, Elena and Marcus reviewed Lauren's intelligence. It was risky, but the information was too valuable to ignore. "She's right," Marcus admitted. "If we can destabilize the Empire's core worlds, their outer territories will revolt. We could force them into a corner." Elena nodded. "Then we move fast, hit their supply lines, disrupt their communications, and make them fear the shadow of our ships." The plan was bold, and it required precision. But humanity had already proven it could outthink the Empire. Now, it was time to outmaneuver them. As the U.S. Titan led a fleet into hyperspace, the galaxy held its breath. Fear had spread across the Empire like wildfire, but fear was a double-edged sword. The humans were betting that with enough pressure, the Empire's grip would crumble. In the vastness of space, the first skirmishes began, small strikes on Imperial outposts and supply lines. The humans moved like phantoms, always striking where the Empire was weakest. Their strategy wasn't just about winning battles. It was about making the Empire doubt itself. And as doubts grew, so did whispers of rebellion across the galaxy. Earth had started something far greater than a war. They'd ignited a spark of hope. Fear spreads across the Empire. The Galactic Empire's grip had begun to loosen, not because of direct defeats but because of whispers. On planets across its sprawling dominion, the story of humanity's victory against the Imperial fleet spread like wildfire. In marketplaces and secret gatherings, people whispered of Earth, the small blue planet that had defied the unstoppable. On Taraxis Prime, the administrative heart of the Empire, the rumors reached even the highest echelons of power. The Imperial Senate convened in its grand chamber, a circular hall with towering marble pillars and golden light filtering from above. The senators, usually submissive to the Emperor's will, were now restless. "This is no minor rebellion," Senator Vexer said, his voice rising above the murmurs. "The humans have shown the galaxy that the Empire can be challenged. They're a primitive species." Another senator spat. "Their victory is a fluke." Vexer turned sharply to face his colleague. "A fluke? The loss of the Eternal Dominion is no fluke." The chamber grew silent as the senators turned their attention to the throne at the head of the hall. The Emperor sat there, shrouded in shadow, his face hidden but his presence palpable. "They fear us no less than they did before," the Emperor said, his voice cold and unyielding. "And we will ensure that fear remains. Prepare the Grand Armada. Let us remind the galaxy of our strength." Meanwhile, on the industrial planet of Mordak Thee, where the Empire's war machines were built, something unexpected happened. A laborer named Krall, one of the millions forced to work in the Empire's sprawling factories, found himself listening to a message smuggled in from Earth. The voice was calm, deliberate, and powerful. "To those who suffer under the Empire's yoke, humanity has no quarrel with you. Rise and together we can end this tyranny." Krall clenched his fists as the message played. He had spent his entire life building ships he knew would be used to crush worlds like his own. The idea of rebellion had always seemed impossible, but now he wasn't so sure. By the end of the day, the message had spread across the planet. Workers began to talk in hushed tones, their hope ignited by the thought that the Empire wasn't as invincible as it claimed to be. In Earth's orbit, aboard the U.S. Titan, Commander Elena Martinez stood in the war room, reviewing the latest intelligence. Holographic displays showed maps of Imperial-controlled regions, with key planets and supply lines highlighted. General Marcus Hayes joined her, his expression grave. "The galaxy is starting to believe in us," he said. "We've destabilized 3 major supply routes already, but the real battle is yet to come." Elena nodded. "The Empire will come back with everything they have, but we need to make sure their allies start questioning their allegiance." She turned to her team. "Our next target isn't a fleet or a fortress. It's their message. We're going to make the galaxy see the cracks in the Empire's armor." The plan was ambitious. Using advanced stealth technology, the human fleet infiltrated Taraxis Prime's communication network. Their goal was simple but daring: to broadcast Earth's message of defiance directly to the heart of the Empire. The operation was led by Captain Ren Ito, a tech specialist known for his unorthodox methods. From a hidden base on the moon of Taraxis Prime, Ren's team hacked into the planetary broadcast systems, bypassing layers of Imperial encryption. "This is either going to be legendary," Ren said with a grin, "or it's going to get us killed." Elena's voice came through his comlink. "Focus, Captain. The galaxy is counting on you." Moments later, every screen, speaker, and holo-emitter on Taraxis Prime lit up with the image of Commander Martinez. Her words echoed through the city streets, the Senate chamber, and even the Emperor's private quarters. "We are humanity," she began, her voice steady and resolute. "The Empire sought to break us, but instead, they revealed our strength. To the people of the galaxy, you are not alone. Together, we can end this tyranny." The message was brief but powerful. As it played, people across Taraxis Prime stopped in their tracks, their eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time, someone had challenged the Empire openly and survived to tell the tale. The Emperor watched the broadcast in silence, his advisors standing nervously around him. When it ended, he turned to Magistrate Lauren. "Do you see now?" he said, his voice low and menacing. "These humans aren't just fighting a war. They're spreading rebellion. If we don't crush them, we'll lose everything." Lauren bowed her head, but her thoughts were conflicted. She knew the Emperor was right, but she also knew that the harder the Empire pushed, the more resilient the humans seemed to become. On Mordak V, the broadcast had an immediate effect. Workers stopped their machines and gathered in groups, their whispers growing louder. By the end of the day, riots broke out. The Empire's guards tried to suppress them, but the workers fought back with surprising ferocity. For the first time, Mordak V burned with the flames of rebellion. Kral stood at the forefront, wielding a makeshift weapon. He didn't just fight for himself. He fought for the galaxy, for a chance to break free from the Empire's chains. Back on Earth, Belina watched the reports of the riots with a mix of hope and caution. "We've started something," she said to Marcus, "but we need to make sure we finish it." Marcus nodded. "The Empire will respond. And when they do, we need to be ready." The galaxy was changing. Fear was spreading through the Empire. But it wasn't just fear of humans. It was fear of losing control. For the first time in millennia, the turning point. The Galactic Empire's control was slipping, and the Emperor knew it. Across the galaxy, whispers of rebellion grew louder. Entire star systems hesitated to send their tribute fleets, emboldened by Earth's defiance. On the Empire's capital world, Taraxis Prime, the once immaculate streets now bore signs of unrest. Propaganda posters hung in tatters, and patrols moved nervously, knowing the people were no longer as submissive as they once were. The Emperor stood in his private war chamber, his advisors gathered around a holographic map of the galaxy. "The humans have sparked a fire," he said coldly, his golden robes catching the dim light. "It is time we extinguished it. "Your Majesty," Admiral Korvath said cautiously, his holographic image flickering before the Emperor. "Their strategies are unconventional. They fight where we are weakest and avoid direct confrontation." The Emperor's piercing gaze silenced him. "They are pests, Korvath. Pests to be eradicated. I want every fleet, every weapon, every soldier mobilized. Earth will burn." Magistrate Loren, standing quietly at the edge of the room, spoke up. "Your Majesty, if I may, brute force alone will not win this war. Humanity's strength lies not just in their weapons, but in their ability to inspire. They've made allies of our enemies, rebels of our subjects. If we don't address the cause of this unrest, our victory will be temporary." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "And you suggest?" Loren hesitated but then met his gaze. "Strike decisively, not just at Earth, but at the heart of their morale. Break their will to resist." The Emperor's silence was heavy. Then he nodded. "Very well, but make no mistake, Loren, if this fails, it will be your head." On board the U.S. Titan, Commander Elena Martinez reviewed the latest reports. The rebellion was growing. Human allies had sabotaged Imperial supply chains, crippled outposts, and liberated key territories. But with every success, the Empire's response grew fiercer. General Marcus Hayes appeared on her comms, his voice gruff. "We've intercepted Imperial communications. They're mobilizing their Grand Armada, a fleet of thousands with advanced reinforcements. They're coming for Earth." Elena's jaw tightened. "They're escalating." "They're desperate," Marcus corrected. "And desperation makes them dangerous." Elena turned to her tactical team. "Then we need to give them a reason to hesitate. If they want to march their entire fleet to Earth, we'll make the cost so high they'll think twice." In deep space, at a crossroads of major hyperspace lanes, the human fleet prepared its trap. This was no asteroid field ambush. It was something far more dangerous. Using advanced stealth technology, Earth had deployed cloaked stations equipped with gravity well generators. These devices could pull ships out of hyperspace unexpectedly, disorienting and isolating them. Captain Ren Ito, leading the operation from the stealth frigate Shadowbane, monitored the approach of the Imperial fleet. "They'll be here any second," he said, his voice tight with anticipation. The first wave of Imperial ships dropped out of hyperspace, their sleek forms glowing with energy. They had no time to react. Human ships emerged from the shadows, their weapons already locked on targets. "Engage," Ren ordered. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Empire had experienced. Human ships didn't fight head-on. They darted in and out, using the gravity wells to scatter Imperial formations. EMP blasts disabled Imperial cruisers, while precision strikes targeted command ships and supply vessels. Admiral Korvath, aboard the Imperial Valor, watched in horror as his fleet was picked apart. "They've fractured us," he muttered. "They're fighting as if they know our every move." An officer turned to him, panic in his eyes. "Admiral, their fleet. It's smaller than ours, but they're outmaneuvering us. We can't regroup." Korvath slammed his fist on the console. "Send reinforcements. Now." Back on Earth, Elena and Marcus monitored the battle from the command center. The holographic display showed the Imperial fleet in disarray, with large sections cut off and isolated. "This is the turning point," Marcus said, his voice heavy with determination. "If we win this, we don't just defend Earth. We take the fight to them." Elena nodded. "But we can't let up. Send the signal to the Zorith Confederation. It's time for their fleets to strike the Empire's core worlds." On Mordak V, the rebellion reached its peak. Krall and his fellow workers had seized control of the planet's primary shipyards, cutting off one of the Empire's key production facilities. Imperial reinforcements arrived, but the workers, armed with stolen weapons and human-supplied intelligence, held their ground. As the battle at the hyperspace lanes raged on, the U.S. Titan made its move. Emerging from stealth, It targeted the Imperial valor directly. Elena's voice echoed across the comms. "This is Commander Martinez. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Corvath, his pride and career hanging by a thread, hesitated. His crew looked to him, their faces filled with fear. Finally, he gave the order. "Stand down. All ships, cease fire." The Imperial valor powered down, its weapons going dark. Across the battlefield, Imperial ships began to follow suit. The victory was decisive. The human fleet had not only defended Earth, but had shattered the Empire's confidence in its grand armada. The cost of war had been made painfully clear. In the Imperial palace, the Emperor listened to the reports with a cold, unreadable expression. "Humanity is relentless," he said quietly, "but they've made a fatal mistake." Magistrate Lauren raised an eyebrow. "And what mistake is that, Your Majesty?" "They believe victory lies in battle," he said, his voice hardening. "But war is not won with weapons alone. It is won with power. Prepare the Dominion Protocol." Lauren's heart sank. She knew what the Emperor meant, and it wasn't a counterattack. It was total annihilation. Back on Earth, Elena and Marcus celebrated the victory with their team, but the atmosphere remained tense. They knew the Empire wasn't finished. The rebellion had grown, and the Empire was faltering, but the war was far from over. Elena stood at the window of the Titan, staring out into the stars. "We've turned the tide," she said softly. "Now, we finish what we started." The galactic warning. The remnants of the Imperial fleet limped back to Taraxis Prime. Their once imposing ships, symbols of unchallenged dominance, now bore the scars of a war they hadn't been prepared for. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. The Empire had blood, and humanity was the one holding the blade. In the Emperor's throne room, the silence was deafening as Admiral Corvath knelt before the throne. His armor was tarnished, his pride shattered. "You return to me in disgrace," the Emperor said, his voice like ice. "You have failed." Corvath dared to look up, his voice trembling. "Your Majesty, the humans, they fight with a cunning we've never encountered. Their strategy, their technology, it is as though they've prepared for us for centuries." The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. "And now, the galaxy sees us as weak." He stood, the weight of his power pressing down on the room. "The Dominion Protocol is ready. If humanity wishes to challenge us, we will remind them why the Empire has ruled for millennia." Magistrate Lauren, standing at the edge of the room, took a step forward. "Your Majesty, with respect, the Dominion Protocol will not just destroy Earth, it will destabilize the galaxy. Entire systems will rebel against such devastation." The Emperor turned to her, his gaze sharp. "Then we will crush them as well. Prepare the fleet." On board the U.S. Titan, Commander Elena Martinez stood in the war room, her team gathered around her. The latest intelligence showed the Empire was mobilizing something massive. General Marcus Hayes appeared on the comms. "Our scouts confirm it. The Empire is preparing for total war. Their fleet is larger than anything we've seen, and they're deploying weapons designed to annihilate entire worlds." Elena's face was grim. "They're not coming to conquer. They're coming to erase us." Marcus nodded, "which is why we won't wait for them to strike." Elena turned to her officers. "Begin Operation Starlight. We take the fight to the Empire." As the Titan led the human fleet into hyperspace, rebellion erupted across the galaxy. The Zoreth Confederation launched attacks on Imperial supply routes, while planets like Mordak V declared their independence. The galaxy, once paralyzed by fear, now moved with a unity the Empire had never faced before. On Taraxis Prime, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace, a bold move that shocked even the most seasoned Imperial commanders. The Titan led the charge, its sleek form cutting through the Empire's defenses like a blade. Smaller human ships darted around the Imperial fleet, disabling key systems with precision strikes. Admiral Corvath, reinstated to lead the defense of the capital, barked orders from the bridge of his new flagship. Hold the line. Do not let them reach the surface. But the human fleet was relentless. They didn't aim to destroy the city. Instead, they targeted the Empire's communication hubs and power grids. The goal was clear: dismantle the Empire's ability to coordinate its forces. Inside the Titan, Elena directed her team with cold precision. On the ground, chaos erupted as the Empire's elite forces clashed with Zorith Confederation allies and human operatives. Krull, the former laborer from Mordak V, led a team of insurgents to take control of the Imperial Senate building. The once mighty symbols of imperial power now stood as battlegrounds for freedom. As the battle raged, the Emperor activated the Dominion Protocol from his throne room. A massive weapon, hidden beneath the palace for centuries, began to power up. It was a planet destroyer, a doomsday device capable of wiping out any world with a single strike. The Emperor's voice echoed across the battlefield, transmitted through Imperial channels. Humans, you dare defy the Empire. Witness the cost of your arrogance. The weapon targeted Earth, its energy building to catastrophic levels. In the Titan, alarms blared as the weapon's signature was detected. Commander, they're going to fire on Earth. An officer shouted. Elena's mind raced. We need to disable that weapon now. Target the power source. The Titan surged forward, its weapons aimed at the palace. Imperial ships tried to block its path, but the human fleet pushed them aside with ruthless efficiency. Inside the palace, Magistrate Lauren made a fateful decision. She couldn't let the Emperor's madness destroy billions. Using her access codes, she disabled the weapon's shielding from within. Elena seized the opportunity. Fire now. The Titan's main cannon unleashed a concentrated beam, striking the weapon's core. The resulting explosion shook the entire city, but the weapon was destroyed before it could fire. The Emperor, his face twisted with rage, turned to Lauren. You betrayed me. She stood her ground. I saved the galaxy. Before he could retaliate, Krull and his insurgents burst into the throne room, capturing the Emperor. The symbol of the Empire's unchallenged rule had fallen. Across the galaxy, the news spread. The Emperor had been dethroned, the capital taken. Rebellions erupted in every corner of the Empire's territory. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy had a chance to be free. On Earth, celebrations broke out as the fleet returned victorious. Elena addressed her people from the steps of the United Earth Council. We stood together when the galaxy thought we would fall. We've proven that no force, no matter how mighty, can break the human spirit. Her words resonated across the stars. Earth was no longer a single planet in the vastness of space. It was a symbol of hope, resilience, and defiance. In the ruins of the Imperial Palace, Lauren stood with Krull, watching as the human flag was raised above the city. The galaxy is changing, she said softly. Krull nodded. And it's about time. The Empire was broken, its power shattered. But the war for freedom wasn't over. As humanity and its allies looked to the stars, they knew the fight would continue. But for the first time,